Hello and welcome back to the We Should Talk More podcast, the podcast where two lifelong friends who don't have much in common try to get a little bit closer. My name is John. I am the creative director behind Alzate Films.
And my name is Josh Cornell, the dog whisperer.
That's great. We got a very special episode today. Just want to welcome people back, but before we get started, I'm gonna take a sip of my brew.
Did we not do our tagline?
I said it. I said it at the start. The podcast. Yeah, I said the tagline.
Did you?
Yeah.
I completely missed it. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. All right, good job. Great job, John. Yeah.
So what are you drinking?
I'm drinking whatever this shit is that you gave me.
Some beautiful Cafe Bustelo coffee.
It's really getting in my throat.
It's not settling well for Josh.
Yeah, I think when you measured out the cream today, it was a little too much.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry about that.
I only give a dash of cream in my coffee. I'm gonna have to show you next time.
Okay.
But thank you for the coffee.
You're welcome.
It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. Like best cup I had all day.
Yeah.
All right, so are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, guys, I'm excited for this one. This is going into a little bit of what John's really been all about for the past 6, 7. Oh, it's his 4th anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
It just said it on LinkedIn today.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 4 years since John has been a content creator on YouTube. Check out his LinkedIn. Give it a like. Be supportive. You have to support content creators out here nowadays.
Yes. Grinding.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But specifically today, we're planning on touching on the first short film that John has put together called Papa Loves Mambo. We're going to chronicle through the beginning to end of what it took to put this short film together and all the lessons that came out of it. And John is here to share his sage advice with us.
Oh, and something I wanted to add, which is good that we're getting out, is like I want to just talk about like my experience making like the film. I don't want it to come across that I'm an expert in any way, but I do think there are lessons that anybody learns in doing something like this. So it's definitely a lot of things worth sharing. But yeah, what I'm sharing is just how I was able to do it. There are much better ways to do it, and there are much worse ways to go about it. But just sharing the story behind it.
Yeah, and I think that really goes for anything we share on this podcast, anything that comes with lessons behind it. There's a lot of stories that we share as we go through episode by episode, just because it's a lot of our life lessons. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of we're still young in our life, but there has been events that have gone by where we thought we were very fascinating, and we thought it would be really cool to share, not only to you, but to each other for the first time. Mm-hmm. So without further ado, I would like to jump straight into it and just get a little bit of a background, John, from what really got you into filming in the first place from day one.
Great question. I mean, I'm sure there's things that were going on when I was much younger. I know my first memory that really comes to mind is being in 8th grade. We had a media club where we made a lot of weird short spoof films. And one film that I helped make was a spoof of Star Wars. And it was I was Han Solo, and we filmed it in our school, and we had our media teacher. He was helping film, and then I think he edited everything for us because we were
How old were you?
This was 7th grade, so I was young, but that's the first time I remember really doing stuff like that, actually making something. Mm-hmm. And then obviously I feel there were a lot of dormant periods. There were times in high school where we made videos for projects or whatever, and I always I liked doing weird stuff or stuff that was funny or going out of the box for stuff like that. But it didn't really pick up until 2017 when I and it was for months of like trying to figure out like what to make on YouTube, and then I just decided just to make stuff, and I made a lot of cringy like out there like things, but I was doing stuff very consistently, and it was mostly like vlogs or like skits and stuff.
What what was it like out of everyone that's like in our group? Like no one would have really encouraged you to film videos.
Well, I'll say like our only friend that like he knows the most about what was going on is our friend Christian. And we went to the same college together, and we used to play ping pong. And like while we were playing ping pong, I would just like on and on give him ideas that I had like of funny things that we could film. Like we would always talk about like making content. We just never made content.
Yep.
So I do feel like a lot of the early ideas that I was making, it was through like that friendship of like bouncing those ideas.
Just going
off.
back and forth,
Yeah.
banter, and
Yeah.
I hear you. Well, that's great.
And then yeah, I mean, you obviously got involved in some of the videos that we were filming in 2017, and that stuff sort of it went from more like random content into like when we started making stuff that had like a story, where it would be like one video led into another, and then there was like a full on like series that we made. And then more like scripted, like after the first Haunting of NJ, which is a series that we made on YouTube. We did that. We did a Christmas short film, which sort of had a script, but it was more like a planned out thing.
Yeah, it wasn't really for a while before we started to, or before you started to like put together a script and like trying to pull us together to put it together. I don't think it was until maybe the end of that summer, after doing videos like twice a week for the whole summer, about that when we started to revise or go over with the second season of The Haunting of NJ.
Yeah.
And that was that same summer, wasn't it? 2017?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. So yeah, that was a change. And that's where I guess like it kind of segues a little bit more into actually putting together a quality film. Now, at that point, you weren't you're putting your best efforts to your experience with what you knew to compile together your resources and produce a short film. But at this point, it was really just a series, some like low quality,
like skits or whatever.
Yeah,
like vlogs that had a story. I feel like that's mostly what it was, because it was like it like the way we filmed it didn't change, but we started to put like a story into the stuff that we were making. And I think if anything, I remember when we started doing that, it was when I started like realizing like, oh, this is something I like, because like I feel like everything else before that was like throwing like stuff at a wall, like seeing what would stick, and like being very like experimental, doing like weird stuff. But when I remember specifically, it was like the video where we made like a storyline of us not being friends anymore, and it was like 2 or 3 videos that like carried that storyline. And when we like had that one video that was like all about that story, and it was like we were in DC, and it was like start to end, it was about like us not being friends, and then how we got back.
That was all improvised.
Yeah,
that was all
improvised.
That was all
that day that we were figuring out. But I still remember like after like uploading that or like editing that together, like feeling something of like liking that more than other stuff that we had made, at least like something kind of like.
Now, did you like the process or just the end product?
I think I liked putting a story together. Even like as we get into this film, like something I really enjoy is like like the conceptual part of like putting a story, like thinking of how does someone get to like point A to point B, and like plotting that story out is like something I really enjoyed. And I kind of discovered it through like the stuff that we were doing.
Okay. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot that like we can dig into, like from your past filming experience and up into the point where you made your first short film. But jumping straight ahead to the first short film, what really inspired you to want to make a short film? What really inspired the thought and the lessons behind it?
So yeah, I mean, I think there were a couple things going on at that point. So the first Papa Loves Mambo ended up coming out at the end of 2019, but from the very start of 2019, I wanted to make a short film. And this could be something that we touch upon later. I spoke about this to you, but like I had like a failed attempt at making a short film early in 2019. And that was coming from like trying to make something and not really having the knowledge to do it. And that almost inspired me too, like wanting to then like figure out like how then can I do this the right way. And it was almost something to prove to myself that I could do it. Cause like in context, I had just graduated. I was struggling to find a job. And the content side of me making things, it wasn't as much of a focus, but it was still something I was really passionate about. And I did want to prove to like, not only myself, but to others that like this thing that I like is something that I could be good at. So there was a lot like personally like invested in that. And I guess for like the idea behind the story, which is like what really made me want to make it, is it was based on Alex's character that had been in like the previous videos. And Alex has a very close relationship with his friend Jake, who is the co-star in the film. And I wanted to explore that friendship because him and Jake had been friends since they were children. And I was just interested in exploring how a conflict between lifelong friends could happen when, because you could be so close to somebody and not fully know them, which is, we were talking about this earlier. It's just funny how much it relates to this podcast itself. But that was something I was really interested in because even at that time, like I was very close with you and a lot of our other friends, but there were things in my life that I wasn't as open about. And likewise for you, that there's things that in your life you don't always share. So
it's just very much this idea that like conversations about certain topics in your life, it just doesn't naturally come up.
Exactly.
Like you go day by day. There's things going on in your life. There's very important things going on in your life, but you don't really find the time in a friendship to really bring it up because it just doesn't come off natural from the tongue.
Yeah, and I guess like in the film, it's like forcing that to come out because like the characters are forced in a situation where like these hidden truths end up coming to light.
But it comes out in an ugly way.
It does.
It comes out in an ugly way, which I love the idea that like the lessons or the theme behind it very much overlaps with the theme behind this podcast.
Yeah, it's very like interesting.
but we are attempting to do it in a beautiful way. In a beautiful way.
Yeah.
So just wanted to make that note. Yeah. And I know we can dig a little bit about what went in before making the film, but I am curious. This year before you started making the film is when you were taking classes for filming.
Yes.
That really started to form your thought around what it goes into putting together a film.
Yeah.
So could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, because I think and I definitely want to talk about the failed like film on maybe a separate episode or something, but taking the classes that I took that year kind of gave me I think like it's necessary to get some sort of like like education, like foundation in whatever you're doing. Like even for you, like if you're interested in coding, it's yes, you can explore it on your own and try to figure it out, but in some ways you do need like a foundation, like a structured foundation to really like facilitate that exploration, because you can explore like your passions, your creativity, but you do need that like the foundation.
I mean, this came up in conversation just yesterday when we were speaking with Arjav. Arjav, our friend, we do Show Your Work on Mondays where we just share work amongst each other about like what we're doing across the week. And one thing that came up with him was this idea of working out and like reaching certain goals. And I brought up the idea, well, have you ever thought about investing in a personal trainer? And that idea didn't sit too well with him because it was just this impression of, well, I'd rather be able to say that I did it by myself.
Yeah.
And while that sounds great, it's a huge accomplishment if you can do something by yourself. And it's not to say that it's not possible. It's just you have to realize the time and resources that go into it to be able to reach that point.
Yeah, and that's even what I mentioned to him too. It takes a lot of strength to acknowledge where you don't know something and like to actually reach out to somebody or like look for help, because more often than not, people do end up being very stubborn And that's how I felt I was too. Like there was a point where I felt like giving out a little cocky, like thinking like, oh, I don't need to take classes in this. I don't need to finish this class to be able to do this because I can do it. But then I ended up realizing like there were things that I needed to learn.
How much you could learn.
Yeah. I guess before even making anything, when I had that idea, what I feel like often happens, and I don't know if you have a similar feeling when there's like an idea that you have, but like it became an idea that I couldn't stop thinking about. Like there was the opening scene of the film, which is like the chase scene, and then in the car with Alex and Jake, where it's like setting up how different they are, because Jake is excited after the robbery, but then you see Alex is having a very different experience than Jake.
Should we give a little context here?
Well, yeah, just like from from a
storyline.
Yeah,
point of
so
view.
I guess in the start of the film, you have it just starts on a chase scene with Alex and Jake, and they get to the car, and you have Jake who is just very like happy, like oh like we robbed this place, and then it cuts to Alex who has like blood on his hands, like he's going through something like an anxiety attack, whatever. But it's just to show the contrast between their personalities at that early point in the story, because that's supposed to be a flashback.
Yeah.
So it's just to set up how different they are, even though they're doing like they both just did a robbery together. They're experiencing like the way they feel about it is different.
And this is when they're both in the thick of it, this lifestyle.
Yeah. And so that whole idea, that whole scene was like in my head before we even did anything. And like that idea was like the first thing that I wrote down.
Okay.
And I guess to get into like the process of like how I started planning out the film, it's always that, like writing down like the story, I guess like the story beats. Like if it's that idea, like that scene, then what other ideas do I have? Like what other interaction am I looking forward to see? So let's say like there's a scene where they open up the trunk and Alex is in, our friend Alex Lago is in the trunk, and they like pull him out and there's this like funny interaction. That was another like big idea that I had. So that's usually, at least from my perspective, how I like would plot that out. Like I would write out these big scenes that I wanted done, and then I would figure out how you get from like this story beat to this story beat to this one. And I guess for context too, at this point, I had already finished the class, so I had the foundation for knowing how to do like proper like screenwriting. Like I knew, I learned the format, which is something I wanted to like.
So did the ideas of like the big storyline points that you were that was just rummaging around your mind for a little bit, was that starting around the turn of the new year, or was that like as the summer was coming around?
I feel like that came like the failed like film that we made was like in March. So like immediately after that, I was thinking of how like what, like I want to do something else. I want to make something, but like in a better way. And that was like one of the big ideas. So this is like before the summer, it was like this idea that like I really wanted to do. And I think even in the screenwriting class I had, I wish I could find it, but I wrote a script for my final, and that scene is in that script.
So I find it very interesting, and like we don't have to touch on it too much if you think it's like getting too much into details with a failed movie film. But normally when I think about somebody failing with an idea, they wouldn't really feel so motivated to go on and like do a whole new short film.
Yeah.
So how did that actually happen?
I don't yeah, I mean that is something interesting, and I feel like it goes back to like really feeling like an urge to prove myself, especially because I had involved so many other people in that film. And then nothing came from it. Like I never uploaded anything. I barely addressed it to these people. And there was like a guilt to that too. Like it's, I wanted to I wanted to actually like go through with something.
I think it's fair context to add here too, is that these are all volunteers who are joining us joining John to put together a film and act for him.
And that's something too, like continue with even like the pre-production stuff. Like when I was making the story, I was making it for those people that I knew would do it for free. Like I wasn't writing like a character that I would cast or that I would have to look for. Like I was writing the story specifically for Alex, for Jake, for Lago, which I do want to note, like that's not a good thing to do. Like let's say actual screenwriters or actual like filmmakers, they rarely, you do hear sometimes they write like a role specifically for somebody, but I don't, it's not a great thing. It shouldn't
really have to line up with the person
because
you have in mind.
I guess the issue too is like, especially in my situation where it's volunteers, when like you're relying too much on somebody. You're putting like the whole schedule will have to revolve around their availability. So if you put all your eggs in one basket of this person has to be this role, if they're not available, then you're screwed. Yeah. Which there were situations like in this in the filming of this, which we'll get into later, where like that does come up. Which again, like you can't get upset about it because these people are volunteers. But that was a big part of like planning out the story, was very dependent on who I knew could be in it. So like during the planning part of it too, I kept it to 3 characters that were going to be in it, because those were like really the only people I had at the time. Which is like, sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
It's tough. I mean, you're just leaning on your friends for this.
Yeah.
And there's only so many friends who are really going to be available to go through a whole film in production, which takes a lot of time. It eats away, and you'll talk about it, how long it takes to just film a short scene. But go on.
So from there, like deciding on the cast, like getting those stories, then you actually have to start writing, which I personally used this thing called Studio Binder, which is like a film production software that they have like this suite of tools. So they have their own like screenwriting like format that you can like write in. You can open up projects to like they let you write like shooting scripts or like just like make a schedule. Like they have all these resources available for you. There are tons of other options. A lot of them you have to pay for. I picked one that was free, and I think Studio Binder, they limit you to one project. So like, you can only make one project, which is basically like a folder that holds all these documents. But the thing that they do let you do is you can write like, you can edit your script and write like a revised version. So if you can write multiple scripts and just say it's a different version of the script.
It's a revision of the previous script, but it can be a completely new script.
Yeah, it could be completely new. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I do, just because it's free. And I guess the reason I like Studio Binder.
What is this called? Studio Binder?
Studio Binder.
All right. So Studio Binder, look out for John. He might be abusing your your free tier a little bit.
I'm sure they know.
I know.
But I mean, Studio Binder is great because they have tons of resources. They have like scripts uploaded into their software that you can read. Like you can read scripts from actual movies. And yeah, they were very. It worked for me too because not to dive into it too much, but there is like a writing format to writing a script. You can't just like write as if you're writing a book or writing an essay. There's like just like the ways that you structure it. In Studio Binder, it's all like built into the document, where you could hit like a little button that says title, and then it'll like pop it in the right format.
It's pretty much a script builder for you.
Yeah, like it structures it the correct way, which is good because I guess the thing you can still write a bad script on that if you don't know like the proper format. But I guess what was good for me is like I took the class, so I understood what it should look like. And then the tools just made it like that much easier.
It's like a good text editor for coding.
Pretty much, yeah.
If you have a good text editor for coding, it's going to reformat your code based on what the syntax is supposed to meet. Look, man, we have a lot in common.
Oh, man.
Who would have thought?
But yeah, and then you just have to start writing. So like the writing part, honestly, took me like a little while. But that's just because... I mean, I'm trying to think of exactly when I first started writing this. I know it was like at the beginning of the summer, and it wasn't until like towards the end of the summer where I had something complete that I was like showing people. But writing is hard.
So it took 3 months.
I would say, or like 2 months and a half, because like it was in July when like I started like showing like the script to Alex and stuff. The thing I will say is that like the ending was like not done until like much later, the ending in the script. But I guess
So
so.
you started production before you even completed the whole script, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because like I knew I guess there were parts of the story that I knew that we could film. Like let's say that opening chase scene is like
Yeah.
completely separate from everything
Was
else.
something
So
you were already thinking about
yeah,
for a
and
while.
that was like the most solid thing that I like. That was like I
Mhm.
mentioned, like the thing I was thinking about all the time. So like I knew I could do that. Um, and I guess like other things in the pre-production that was going on is there was a part where it's like on me like learning like if there's stuff in the story that I was writing where it's like I didn't know how to shoot that or like I didn't know how to do that or how to edit that like just watching videos on YouTube trying to learn just so I know like I didn't want to have something in the story that I couldn't do, so I wanted to like learn things ahead of time. And then other things too come to like looking for locations. For me, obviously, it's like you're looking for where you're allowed to go to, or like whose house you could go to. Driving to places to see how they look. A lot of the places that we filmed that were outdoors were places that I went to like a couple times before we actually filmed. Especially like that chase scene, that tunnel. Like I found that just driving one day, and I was like, that looks really cool.
That's the spot.
And I'm like that, like I can like you envision that, and like that wasn't in the script. That was just something that I found, and then you write it into the story. So like stuff like that happens all the time. So I think like in this pre-production phase, there was a lot of changes happening to the story. So like part of it too is we did rehearsals, like, and this is the first time I ever did that too, which is cool. Like we actually read through the script with Alex, Jake, and Lago, and through reading it, there was a lot of changes made to the script because let's say Alex, I told him that they could do this. I'm like listen, I wrote these characters for you, but if you think there's a better way to say something, like say it, or if you want to add something, like go for it. Like I'm not gonna force you to fit into this thing. And there
this
were
is something you've never done before.
no, so I was very like use the script as the template, but like go with it with how you felt to go with it. And there were, I wish I could think about it like put my thumb on it. There is the one thing where Lago, his character, who he's the one that's tied up. Yep. They start talking about like a bloodhound, and then Lago's like what, like a beagle, like that.
That was like
that was him.
The iconic part
and
of the short film.
Yeah, and like one of the most iconic lines was something that Alex like came up with when we were doing rehearsals. It wasn't on the spot. It was in rehearsals. So it's like stuff like that happens. Like, and we found it so funny when we. It's funny too because we found it so funny when we did the rehearsals. I remember filming it. It lost. We didn't think it was fun anymore. But I think it's because we read the script so many times that the joke lost, like to us, it lost the funniness. But to other people, it's still funny.
I'll tell you, the first time I ever saw the film, that had me dying.
Yeah, so it's just like that stuff happens too, which is like when you go over a script so much, it starts to lose like the touch it has.
You must have read over the script like hundreds, but like tens of 20s of times.
Yeah.
if that's the way to describe it.
And I brought this book here. I didn't like touch on it yet, but I read this book this year, and it's funny how much
what's the book?
It's called Rebel Without a Crew by Robert Rodriguez. It's funny how much
we'll add it to the show notes.
Yeah, we will. It's funny how much in this book like ties into stuff that I learned like making this. Because something he mentions in the book, which is a little different than me, but when he wrote the script for his first feature film, he didn't like, he personally has a disdain for writing.
Okay.
So he's like, I'm just gonna write the whole thing, and I'm gonna film it, and I'm gonna make it look as cool as possible, so that I could get funding to get somebody to write for me, and then and also to pay people to help film this to make it look better. So like his whole idea, he was making a feature film, but he made that film like 3 times.
Okay.
So the first time he made it was just on his own, like with people that he knew, and then he started shopping that around to try to get funding to make it properly.
Yeah.
So when he first wrote his script, he didn't care because he's like, this isn't the final product, which I think is really like. It's an interesting way to go about it.
It tears down a little bit of a barrier of entry there.
And I think it speaks to this idea that a lot of people I struggle with myself included, that like sometimes it's better just to do something than spend so much time perfecting it.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot more just through doing than like sitting around trying to like perfect like a process. But let's say through all these processes, we ended up like figuring out the script. We organized the schedule based on like everybody's availability, and then we started filming. So we started filming. This is where it gets funny because we started filming in July.
Yep.
There's a break in August, September, October.
What's happening at this point?
So in July we filmed the opening chase scene.
How long did that take?
That took 1 day.
A full day.
But yeah, a full day, which it's like the thing that, especially when you're learning, it's hard to do that. And then when it's one person filming, it's even harder. But like even like a 4-minute scene can take hours, especially like when you redo stuff or like moving around. Like we were moving to different areas in the area that we were in. And then also like driving my car and like filming them running. And also that scene, the beginning has them running across Wawa. That Wawa is in a completely different town from where we filmed that scene. So we literally filmed at that Wawa, then drove 10 minutes to like this other location.
Just to have Wawa
yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah.
The film.
Which is, we had to get it. And that whole thing too, Alex like spoke to someone that worked at the gas station of Wawa and just told them, hey, like we're filming something. I'm going to run across with like a bag and a mask. Like don't
act up.
Yeah. like it's just like a thing. And the guy's like, oh, I don't care. Do whatever you want.
Yeah. I don't think a gas station.
Yeah. I don't
really care all that much.
I think he was just, I guess he was just trying to be like, kind. To not freak him out, which was nice. But
it would be fairly strange for someone to run across a gas station with a mask on.
Yeah.
So it's completely fair.
But yeah, so we filmed that opening scene, and then the idea was to have like a small break because that opening scene is a flashback. So I'm like, let's now film this next part like a couple weeks later. I think I told Alex like grow your hair out a little bit, like so you look different.
Just make it look like you're a little different than what it was a few months back.
But like 2 weeks after filming that scene, I was in vacation in the Bahamas, I think, and my camera breaks. And it's like absolutely devastating. And I was shooting. My camera was called the Panasonic GH5, which is a great camera. But something that was good about it is that it was my only camera that I could plug a microphone into. I have other cameras, but like they're like photography cameras. Like I can't plug in the audio, and I didn't have like a separate audio setup at the time. So I was kind of screwed.
What happened to the camera?
It was in the camera bag. We were out at night drinking. And the camera bag.
You brought it out with you.
And I brought it out with me, which was terrible.
Why was that?
I think it was with me throughout the day, and I just never went back to the room. And at some point in the night, the bag fell off like a stool.
Okay.
And I didn't open the bag to see if the camera was okay. I'm like, oh, like it's
probably fine.
Probably fine. And then my mom.
You throw your book bag with a laptop inside, like
it
gets you worried for like a split second.
But you don't expect
whatever.
anything to happen. And then I give the camera to my mom, and she brings it to the room. And then the next day, I go to get my camera. I'm all happy, gonna go film at the beach. And I open it, and the lens. So it's an interchangeable lens. So the lens, like you snap it in by like turning it, but the lens broke off like sideways. So like
so it's like blatantly obvious. You don't even have to open it up.
It was really just the lens that broke.
Okay.
Because the lens, like part of the lens snapped off. So like part of the lens was still in the camera. The other part was just off.
Which doesn't look like how it's supposed to look, does it?
No. So I guess technically I did have a camera. I just didn't have another lens. So like coming back home, it was too expensive to buy a new lens. We had already spent so much money on that camera. And I didn't really, I guess I could have looked to rent a lens, but I found out that I could repair the lens because I was still under warranty. So I just sent the lens to get repaired, and I kind of just figured like, we'll just wait till I get it back and we can continue. But I didn't get the lens back until the tail end of September. So we're talking like 2 months
Oh,
without like the camera.
so there's no filming at all at this
No
point.
filming at all. And really no like discussion about like picking it
Mhm.
up because it's been so much time.
At this time, are you doing anything like on the side with filming? Like any, just like vlogging,
Um,
any short, like, oh, I'm going out today and let me capture a little bit of footage?
No, because it was this year where I was doing like monthly videos, but they were
Mhm.
like the cinematic like
Yeah.
film thing. So like I filmed enough before my camera broke to upload a video
You
for
had a
August.
backlog.
Yeah.
Okay.
I filmed stuff on vacation with that camera. It was still on the SD card. And then when in September when I got my camera back, it was like September like 20 something. So I was able to film stuff to upload for a September
Mhm.
video. So to people watching, like nothing happened, but there was like a while. Where I
Yeah,
hadn't gotten
at
a
this
camera.
point, I had no clue.
Yeah.
I'm over in Wisconsin for a little bit of context. Like, this is why I'm not involved in this story at all.
Yeah.
Although, like, John wouldn't want me as an actor because I'm probably the worst actor out of this whole group. But like, all I'm experiencing, all I'm watching are your monthly films,
Mhm.
your monthly videos, and that's all I expect.
And you were like kind of involved. I think there was one where I asked you to send me like a clip or like me film you, but it's like you had no idea what was even going on.
Oh yeah, you called me for some
Yeah.
odd reason,
And I just
saying-
told you to say something,
you
and
told me
said,
to say no.
yeah, exactly.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I mean, but because I'm such a bad actor, I couldn't really do it all that effectively, and I don't think it was ever used.
No, it was. It was.
Was it?
I think you were supposed to say like, "Wait, what?" And the context was like, I made a video where I made it seem like I was considering just like stopping making videos altogether.
Oh, was this something that you used in one of your
Yeah.
monthly films?
And this was and this was actually the August monthly film when my camera broke. The story that I added to the end of it was about wanting to stop, which is just funny because given at the time that was something that I started like thinking about. Because like during 2019 I was making those like monthly films. So, like whenever I went out, I would bring my camera with me, and then I went through a period of not having a camera at all. So I guess you start to think about that, like I don't have this thing, but do I really need this thing? Do I really want to do this thing? And I guess getting back into the film, this is something that carried on even once I got my camera back, because when I had it back, we hadn't really talked about the film, and I think there was like a subconscious idea that was going on in the back of my head of like, I guess we're not gonna finish this, because it didn't seem like many people wanted to. I was struggling to find a reason to want to. So like, let's say in October nothing is filmed, but for no reason, because I did have a camera. But
like the conversation just never picked up, and you never really bothered to pick it back up. Is
Yeah.
what's going on here?
yeah, and like I was coming to terms with that. Like it was in context too. Like we're getting into the fall. I still hadn't gotten a job. Like I'm starting to think like I probably should
Focus.
on that instead of like putting all this energy into a film.
Did you finish writing the script at this point?
The script was done. Yeah.
The script was done. Since when?
The script was done like, I think it was I kept working on it like when I wasn't with my camera, but still like not really like knowing if it was gonna be
Ever used or
ever
not?
used, yeah.
You just wanted to
yeah.
at least.
It was
complete
just something.
the script.
It was also something like I had nothing else to do. Like I didn't have the camera to film anything, so I'm like, I'll just like work on this.
Were you applying for jobs?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
But this was like, I remember when I would apply to jobs, I would literally like be looking or like researching till like 5 o'clock, and if I would treat it like an actual job. After 5 o'clock, I would start
Clock
doing
out.
films
Yep.
and then I would like close up the tabs, open up Studio Binder, and get back to it.
That's fair. Did you start at 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to go to like Starbucks or Panera from like 9 to 5.
Really?
Yeah. I was home for so long applying to jobs that I wanted to go somewhere else.
You just wanted to walk out the house.
But yeah, so in November, Alex starts like trying to get the production going again. So like I will give credit to Alex for in many of the films he does like steward a lot, like in getting people.
How does he go about it?
I don't remember exactly. I do know like Alex out of everybody had a more personal like interest in getting the film done. He had an interest in acting, and we had already filmed this whole like chase scene. So he's like, let's just like get people together. We can film on like some weekends or whatever. And we're able to do it. We're able to get people together. It's like 2 weekends in November, back to back. Like we have this Saturday and this Saturday. Nothing's going on. Everybody's free. We're gonna film these Saturdays. Everybody knows, like we're good to go. The first Saturday, everybody's late, except Alex, because Alex is always like
what was the schedule? What was the schedule, and what did it end up being?
It was like, let's meet up at this place. It was the outdoor scene where they take Lago out of the car. I believe we were gonna meet up at like 10.
Well, this is I was looking back at the film
because you can see that it's in the winter.
That's close. Is that close to where Jake lives?
It is. That was in Watcher.
Okay, that's what I thought. I felt
in the reservation.
I walked by that place once.
And it's like a parking area outside of the parking area where it's like gravel, so like people don't normally park there. So we were fine like parking there and like filming.
What time did you arrive?
We were there at like 10. And I was there with Alex. What really sucked was that we're talking like the second to last week of November. It's freezing and we're standing outside waiting for Jake to show up. And I remember like Anthony was there with us too. Our friend Anthony, who wasn't even involved in the filming. Like I think the idea was we wanted to film early so we could go to a winery after. And obviously we didn't meet up exactly on time, but when
the winery happened?
The winery still happened.
It still happened. Okay.
Which is crazy. But when people got together, we were able to get it done. And I will say, like, the thing that I learned making this film that made my life 100 times easier was making like a shooting script. So like you have like a script, but a shooting script is basically like a list of all the shots that you need to make and like what's going on in those shots and like what type of shot. Is it close? Is it far? Is it moving? Is it like whatever?
So you pretty much have a checklist of all the items you really want.
And I had it on my phone.
Yeah.
So I did on my notes app. So every time I filmed something, I would check it off. And like I still have it saved on my phone. I could show you after. And as soon as everything was done, we were good to go. And I don't remember what time we were able to finish, but I do remember feeling impressed at how quickly we were able to do it. Given that this was like more of a dialogue heavy scene, and it's dialogue with 3 people, so it's like you have to cut to Alex, Jake, Lago, all of them. Like there's a lot of moving pieces in that like interaction.
Did Lago have any lines at this point?
He didn't because his mouth is taped up.
That's what I thought.
It does cut to him a few times, like mumbling.
That's
like
true.
Moving his hands in the tape. But yeah, he didn't actually have any spoken line. Which is
did you write mumble in the script?
I think so. I think he's just like with the tape in his mouth. I think it might have been his mouth. It might have been a little improvised.
I thought his mumbling was great.
It was.
His mumbling was like really impressive.
Honestly, our friend Lago, like he had the least like invested in that film, but he was one of the best like parts of it.
And he's also been like the least. He's out of like the friend group.
Yeah,
he's been like the one that we've seen in front of the camera the least.
Yeah, which is, it's funny because he was the one person that I was like the most nervous about, because like you don't know how someone's gonna be, but he was great. Same with Jake, and I didn't touch upon this, but Jake's like, I became friends with Jake mostly that year in early 2019. A lot of his lines, I think there was some stuff that he added, but a lot of his stuff that I wrote. And it's just funny because like Jake talks in a very particular way. Like he says certain things like boss man, boss man, boss man. Like he like repeats
his phrases.
Stuff.
He has his phrases.
And all of that was I wrote it into the thing. So like when you watch it, and I think I remember watching it with some of his friends, they even said like this he's just playing Jake, and it's true. Like, and that's almost like something you feel good about, because like you were able to write somebody in a way that it's them. I feel like I struggle with that more with like Alex, because Alex isn't really playing himself. He's playing like it's partially himself. It's like the mobster like accent and stuff. I feel like he owns that character a little more than I do. Like he comes up with better lines for that character than I can. So I will give credit to Alex for that. Like that character is his. Like he really like, created that. But yeah, that was the first shooting day in November. And then it went fine.
It spanned how many hours?
It must have been like I think everyone there was at 12, so it was like 12 to 4. It was like 4 hours.
Okay, that's not too bad for a shooting
Yeah,
day.
it wasn't crazy. But it was super cold, and I remember feeling really bad about that because it was like it was
Everyone's
freezing.
here for free,
Yeah.
and they're freezing
And
their
yeah,
asses
we're
off.
freezing, and like there were people there, like Alex's girlfriend too was there, Erin, like that had no reason to be there, so they were just like waiting for us to finish. But it worked out. The next shooting day was one of the harder ones because it's the longest scene. It's like the scene where they're in the garage. There's also stuff like leading into the garage
like
scene.
half of the film right there.
Yeah, which I guess even looking in retrospect, I wish I cut down a lot of that scene because like when you watch the film, like you get to the halfway point and like you said, like the other half of the film is all in that scene.
Garage right
Meanwhile, the whole beginning, it's like cutting. It's a little bit quicker. So like that's like the main thing that I like when I watch it again. Like I hate when it gets to that scene because it's like I can feel it like slow up a bit. But that is one of the more important scenes because it's there's the dialogue there is more important.
So when you're reflecting back on it, are you saying that if you were to do it over again, you'd make that shorter and break it up into different segments?
Yeah,
How
or
would
like
you go about
either
it?
like shorten the dialogue because there's a lot of like exposition dialogue where like people are just like explaining or like saying things that you could maybe shorten in another way, or like I do think I would want to get to the point where Lago escapes from his binds like quicker. I think it like drags on a little too much to get to that point.
I guess before we jump into it, why don't we just give a quick summary of what happens from here to the end?
So Jake and Alex bring Lago to like a secure location. This is Jake's house. They go into Jake's garage. And then in this scene, they're like interrogating Alex because they think that he is a guy who
This reminds me, I don't think we even touched upon this idea of why they even captured Alex in the first place.
So they think that they captured they think Alex like stole from their boss. It's a very simple like
Boss man of the mafia.
Yeah. So they're just asking like where the money is. It's like a very simple setup. And through the story, there's like a part where so Alex and Jake both have masks on. There's a part where they take their masks off, and then Lago recognizes Alex, and then that's where the story kind of like it's like the twist.
His mask didn't come off.
Well,
not at this
because
point.
Jake takes off his mask. It happens in the garage.
I thought it was that Jake said Alex's name.
Oh, you're right.
I know the film better.
Yeah,
than
you do. You actually watched it.
I watched it this morning.
You watched it this morning. Yeah. So yeah, Jake says his name because up to that point they're going under nicknames like Pumpkin and Bones, like after the masks they're wearing. Yeah. So yeah, when Jake says the name, then eventually they just take off their masks because they've been made basically, like, which means like the person they captured knows their names, knows their like faces because Jake's mask comes off.
But I mean, it was also that Alex just knew Alex.
Yeah,
Lago knew the mafia Alex
because
they knew each other from school.
Him, yeah. So then that becomes like the big problem because then like Jake's wondering like how he knows him, and it's because Alex has been going to college, which is like the big issue, I guess, that comes out towards the end of the film because both of the characters are supposed to be like in the mob life or whatever, but then you have Alex who's trying to move out of it because he's going to college, he wants to do something better with his life, and that's where like the main strife between the two friends are, because it's something that hasn't been communicated. And I think Alex has a line which is kind of sweet where like he's like he says that like that life is Jake's thing but it's not his, like it's become something that Jake is good at but like it's not what Alex wants for his life, which is like something that it happens too with friends, like sometimes you're interested in something but eventually you might not be, or your priorities change, and that's like the main conflict because these two are so close, they're partners or whatever, and then they have that big like difference in like what they want to do. So yeah, this is all like the end scene. Coming up to filming that, there was like so many things going on. Like Lago, who is the prisoner, he was kind of ghosting us at the start of the day, which is I love
Like
you,
film
Alex.
day, film day.
Film day, yeah.
Really?
And I love Lago so much. And honestly, like looking back on it too, like he may have just not really wanted to do it, which is I get that too, because like if someone was expecting like a full day of like filming something and
It's
it's
a
not
lot of
really your
work.
thing,
It's a lot of
like,
work.
yeah.
The fine line here, just to like be on both ends,
Yeah.
or play both ends, is like there's also a level of commitment here.
Yeah, when you make like a promise to do something like that, and also we had done so much up to that, like to not
It's the
yeah.
close to the very
yeah,
end.
because we're getting very close. Like this film was supposed to come out in Halloween, and we're talking like already like tail end of November now filming. But we were able to get him. We had to like go to his house and get him, but we were able to get him.
Oh man.
And so it was another late day. Like it wasn't going according to plan, which I guess I didn't really touch on this, but another huge lesson that I learned is like no matter how much you plan, like for at least a film particularly, if you plan it like hour by hour, it's never gonna go
never
that
actually
way.
adds up.
Because stuff will always go wrong. So like always be open to that, and like flexible to fix things on the spot, which I think I didn't really touch on this at all either, but the way the film was shot was like it's in Robert Rodriguez, it's like the filmmaking style that he kind of pioneered. It's like a guerrilla filmmaking where it's just like on the spot, like mostly one person filming, figuring out scenes, like time of, like moving things around, time of, and it's more spontaneous. It's harder because it's like one person filming, so it's like for me it's like I'm the person filming. I also have to manage the audio with the mic on the camera. There's like a lot going on, but it's sometimes what you have to do in those situations.
Now, I mean, I know we're saying that let's be flexible. If the schedule goes different from what's expected, it's almost guaranteed to go different from what's expected. Even if you line everything up minute by minute.
Yeah, because and even if it's sometimes it's not even anyone's fault. Like sometimes I might not like a way thing is filmed, so we spend more time trying to fix it, and it just eats up time.
I mean, do you think that could change with more experience, more resources?
Yeah, and like having people to help you too, which is like I think in the next film that I made after this, I had a little help with like Anthony. He was like doing like the microphone. So it ends up getting easier with more people involved and practice. Like you learn a quicker way to film something or whatever. So that's definitely something that it'll improve. But I think it's also just in productions like that, like there will always be hiccups or something. It might not
Something
be as big.
Could never expect.
But yeah, it's just like you have to be open to that, because if you have it riding so much on a tight schedule, if one thing goes wrong, then you can't let the whole thing fall apart. But we were able to do it. The biggest issue that happened that day, which I don't know if you noticed because you watched it today, but we were filming in the garage and the lighting was terrible.
It's black and white.
Yeah, which is like purposely done because that last scene, the lighting is so it changes so much. I don't think people really notice when you watch it, but I had to make it black and white because then it would be so much more noticeable. Basically, it was so dark in that place. At this time, I didn't have lights. I didn't like have proper lights. I think when there's a film I shot with you where I actually brought lights. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
I didn't have that at that time. I bought them because of that situation.
See, this is what you learn. This is what you learn just by doing.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that like this is like a necessary thing if I didn't have that mistake. But we lit the scene with the garage door being open. But it was
What time of day is this?
Well, I don't remember exactly, but I do know it was so late in the day because we were starting so late that the sun started setting in the middle of us filming.
Okay.
And that was that was a big
shit.
hurdle for me to come over too, because I'm like, oh, like this is gonna ruin the whole thing. And I think there's always like that moment when you're doing something where like it was like the oh fuck moment, like I want to give up. Like that was it for me, like in this film, because I was like, this whole thing is like gonna look terrible. Everyone's gonna notice. We have the garage door open in half the scene. It's closed in the other half of the scene. I don't know what we're gonna do.
You can always film another day. But
You
then
could,
again, you
but
don't know
yeah,
if you
exactly.
can get Lago again.
Yeah, and in these situations too, it's like we already filmed so much of this scene. We've like invested all this time like in this area, and then we're gonna like either not use it or have to like film again a separate day. And it's just
And it was
it adds
already
a lot
so
of
much of a
hurdles.
struggle just to get everyone together.
Yeah, and we were really riding on this being the last day because like you know
You want to be done with it.
yeah. Especially when it's like a short film like this where it's like not many people involved. You don't want to use up too much of people's time. But yeah, I don't know if it was that noticeable. The black and white thing, I still hate that like
I like the black and white.
I think like it looks cool in like the start of the film. It's like stylized, I guess. And I thought it was interesting to have the flashback be in color, the bulk of the film black and white, and then when the issue's resolved, it's back in color at the ending scene in Wawa. Because I feel like seeing the color at the end with like the Christmas decorations and stuff, it's more like jarring because now you're seeing like color, life, like vibrant. But also like if you go on film Twitter, people absolutely like bash people who make black and white first short films. I guess it's a thing.
Really?
And I guess it gave me a little bit. It's a little bit of an embarrassment, but also solace knowing that it's like a mistake that a lot of people fall into.
Well, why is that a mistake? Why is it a mistake?
It's not necessarily a mistake, but it's like doing black and white is basically saying like I didn't invest too much time in like lighting or color grading, which is like editing the color.
So,
and the look of the film.
It's a common shortcoming that people have recognized over time that like
and it's usually like called out as being lazy or lazy
like
or you don't like you don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
So if you have a black and white film, usually the implication is that you didn't like set up the lighting correctly. Yeah.
Or just it's like a thing that I think people early on do because they think it's cool, but it's like a lot of people do that because they think it's cool, like starting out. So it's become a thing that's so like common that it's like an inside joke. Because
but I do think it fits in nicely with the theme of the film.
I liked it. I don't know.
We're talking about the mafia here, which is like black and white days, and then you also play into it with the way that you time out the whole film.
With like the different time periods that things are going
exactly.
On. But yeah, so after filming that day, it gets a little bit into post-production because I do start editing after this day. There are extra stuff that I filmed with Alex, like the starting scene where he's in front of the Christmas tree. That was done in December because it's also like we were getting so close to Christmas. I was like, all right, I guess I'll release this on Christmas. Let's make it a Christmas film. That's why it opens with Alex in front of a Christmas tree and it closes with like Alex saying Merry Christmas. True. That was never in the script. That was just added. This was supposed to be a Halloween film. I still stand by that.
At this point, you've released content for each Halloween for like the past 2 to 3 years.
So that was the goal because
continue with that.
That used to be my thing. Yeah, but it just didn't happen in time, which is fine. But so there were a few extra stuff to film, but it was mostly just stuff with Alex, like getting voiceover from him because throughout the film there's some voiceover. So this is all going on in December, just getting like extra stuff from him. But I guess to get into like the editing process, something funny that I always do is I immediately edit a trailer. After I film something, I did this with The Haunting of NJ when we finished.
Is
filming.
this just like you go through the footage and see what you find the funniest and just take little clips out of it?
Well, I guess like part of before editing, I like to look through like most of what we film. But I guess through doing that, you see like what looks cool, like what is like cinematic or what was funny. So while I'm doing that, I'm like, oh, I'll just like drag this into a folder. I'll drag this into a folder, and then you end up getting like 15 clips that all look cool or all are funny, and you're like, okay, I can make a trailer with this. And I do that for most, like every film or like series that we've done. I usually always do the trailer first, which is funny because it's also something that Robert Rodriguez talks about, which like I didn't read this book
until after this point.
And it's so funny because he when he made his film, same thing. He's like, This film is not perfect. The script is like
Mhm.
whatever, but I filmed some cool looking stuff. So I'm just gonna edit a cool trailer. So instead of like walking around being like, "Hey guys, I have this 20-minute film. Do you want to watch it?" I'll be like, "Hey, I have this 2-minute trailer. Like, check this out," and then you get people excited.
Exactly. I mean, you can make a trailer into something beautiful,
Yeah,
and
and
then like the content of what it was a trailer for could
could be dog shit.
Yeah, complete
Yeah.
dog shit.
Yeah.
Just think about like the
Any movie trailer.
just think about like the podcast post you just gave out earlier this week.
Getting people excited for
And now
yeah.
now people are listening an hour into this and realizing how what this actually is.
Yeah.
Just listen to John talking about filming all day.
Yeah. But yeah, that's like the first thing I do, and then I guess to quickly go through it, it's usually I do like a skeleton edit where like I'll just put together all the clips in chronological order and like cut them for the dialogue to make sense, and then I'll build like a bare bones like edit. And then when I was writing down the notes for this, the biggest step is music. That's like the next step is like I have to find good songs.
How long does that take you?
It takes me like days, like just listening
I
to songs.
was just thinking about it today when like the intro music pops in
Yeah.
for Papa Loves Mambo,
Yeah.
and I was like, that just fits so well.
Yeah.
Like, how long did it take you to find that specific song?
There's some songs that it's funny because there's some songs that I'll hear and they like inspire a whole film. Like that song, I like imagined it making sense and like to use it in a film. So that was always like a song that I wanted to use.
You've always had that one prepared.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's other music in the film that is like later on or like background music that I ended up adding or like having to find. And it ends up being hard. I don't know how many actual tracks there are, like actual songs, like not like background music that are in the film. I'm trying to think because I know there's a My Chemical Romance song at the start. Oh well, there's also the chase scene song. I think is that the one you're talking about?
I'm talking about the one that comes in with the intro music and then it carries on with.
Oh, with the next scene.
Yeah, with the next scene.
That's the My Chemical Romance song where it does like the title sequence. Yeah, so that was like one of the big ones that I was thinking about early on. There's the chase scene song, which took me a while to find something good, but that song is pretty good. The end credits song is one that I think I had for a long time, but it's like it's harder to make the commitment to picking a song too, because it's you have to also make sure that you can actually use it without getting the video taken down. So a trick that I learned is that I would just upload a private video of just the song and see if it gets taken down, because even if it's private, YouTube will still say if it can't be viewed because
it's
of the music.
just within their algorithm to identify.
So I would just upload a blank video with just that song and
see if it works.
Yeah, and I did that for every song.
I also was thinking about when we're thinking about copyright now, you use like a Wawa advertisement in the beginning.
I did. And I guess I never really like bothered to look into the legality of that, but it is like a 1980 something Wawa ad, and it's free, like free advertisement for
Where
them.
did you find it?
That was something that I found later on. I don't remember like how I found it. I must have been. I know there was a time where I was like, I found a lot of old commercials, and it might have like reminded me like, oh, like, there might be an old Wawa commercial. When I found it, I'm like, oh, I have to use this in the film. And that happens a lot. There's like things you find later on that you want to include. So yeah, the music is.
There was no double checking that. That was just like I'm gonna release it in the film.
Yeah,
and like you felt comfortable with.
Yeah,
that
one I really didn't put too much thought in it. It's funny that you bring that up. But yeah, after you find the music, then you also re-edit, because like there's some scenes you edit to a song, or you just viewing it again, you want to shorten things. So there's like another edit that I do, and then the next step is like color grading. So like we talked about a little bit, like I saw how that one scene looked so weird with the lighting. I just made it black and white, and then
you'll have to show me like how it looks originally if you still have.
Yeah, I might. I can show you. But yeah, what's funny, like in that scene, like there's some parts where you see the background, and if you go to the beginning of the scene and then go to the end of the scene, you can clearly see that the garage door is closed at the end of the scene, but it's open at the start of it. But I filmed it in a way where you, like at the start, you don't really see that the garage door is open, and then at the end I turn the camera that way, so then it's closed. But it's like I played it close, but if you're really
said
paying
at
attention,
the end
you
it's
notice.
closed.
At the end it's closed because it was pitch black outside.
Dark.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that like around the time that you're filming the part where Alex's identity was revealed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I do remember it was facing closest to
Yeah.
the door at that point.
But yeah, so like changes with color, and then I just will watch it multiple times and like seeing if there's stuff I want to change, and that can go on for a while. Just like not like.
At what point do you watch it and say, okay, this is ready?
Yeah,
I'm ready to sign off on this.
I mean, definitely like a lot before when I want to release it. Like I think this was released like 2 days after Christmas or something. I was probably fully done with it like the 14th or something. Like,
do you not have this urge in you once you have a finished product to show it off?
Oh yeah, like but I showed it to Alex. Like
Yeah.
and I showed it to Alex only.
Okay.
And actually that's funny because I do have that urge, but I do also I want it to be complete when everybody sees it.
Mhm.
So like there's multiple scenes, like edited scenes that I have sent to Alex just for him to look at it. Like the opening chase scene that was like fully edited at the end of August or whatever, because I had all that footage done.
Yeah.
Like but I just like held on to it for a little while. But yeah, and then it also like in this point too in December is when you want to like start promoting it, which like I feel like I went about it in maybe not the best way, because like I probably posted like a teaser earlier in December, and then like a week later I posted a full trailer, and then like a couple days later the full video came out. It's like it was very like close. But again, it's like it's not like I have a huge fan base in the first place, but I did want people to know about it. But it was cool, like I guess when it was released, having people see it, and like a lot of people that I don't personally interact with, like responding to me on Instagram or whatever, saying it looked cool or whatever. And yeah, it's I guess the scariest thing though when you finish something like that, and I guess I'm sure you feel the same way when you're working on like an important project, but like once you present it, once it's done, it's kind of like not yours anymore. It's just like it's still yours, but it's just like out there for people's like consumption and interpretation, like whatever.
How do you find that scary?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's scary because you're revealing yourself if it's a personal like project. Like in this sense,
you're opening yourself up to criticism.
Yeah. Which did we talk? Yeah, we talked about in the personality thing, like with about criticism, like how we take criticism.
Okay, that's true. We have.
And I will say, like for this film, again, like it wasn't perfect, so that there was like criticism, but like constructive criticism. And in most cases, I took it okay. When it came from like my parents, I guess it's like that thing where like you automatically like dismiss like those opinions because you're like, oh, like they just don't understand it, or like they don't like because sometimes you don't want to accept like certain criticism, but looking back, even my parents, like they thought it was cool. Like I guess because something interesting that I don't really talk about is like my parents they don't have much involvement, like much knowledge of me like doing that. Like let's say like all these months I'm planning a film, writing a script, I'm not really talking to them about it. So like when this thing comes out, it's like, oh wow, this is like cool. Did you do this? Like I remember my mom asking me that, like
when did you do this? Last week?
yeah, and like there's that assumption that they actually think that you probably did that in like a week or whatever. Which I thought was cool. And I remember I specifically didn't want to tell people too much because I wanted to be like a surprise, like this coming out, because like I said earlier, it was I felt like I had a chip on my shoulder that like I wanted to like prove myself. And I guess it again, like it wasn't perfect, but it was an achievement, like just getting something done like start to finish, because like oftentimes it's very easy to give up.
And you're very close to that point.
Yeah,
you're very close to that
times.
point.
Yeah.
What was it that really pushed you? I know you said Alex
Yeah.
helped out a ton with like building up that motivation again. At what point did you feel like there was this, like it's actually going to get completed? You did have the point when it was the last film day and you were about to give up.
Yeah.
But I imagine beforehand there's a period where you're like, okay, we have our final film day. It's going to happen. This is gonna be completed.
Yeah.
But was it a little before then that you finally had the motivation that this is gonna be wrapped up? You had it all planned out. You were ready to go.
I mean, I guess like even talking about like that moment like where I almost gave up too. Like I know like I always feel bad about wasting people's time. So like in those situations, I'm like I still, even though I guess in the back of my head I'm like I could always not use this because like if you think about it with the previous attempt, I filmed this whole thing but I didn't do anything with it. So there's like that subconscious thing where like you don't have to release this if it's bad, which is then a bad thought. Like I acknowledge it's like a bad thought because like even if you make something bad, at least you made something. Like you should
share it.
Yeah. But there is like a bad thought in my head that things like that where it's like, all right, like I don't want to waste people's time. Like we're already so invested. Let's finish this. If I like it, I'll go with it. If I don't, I'll like not go with it.
Can we dig into that a little bit? Like, because I imagine people would disagree with that opinion where you said if the content is poor quality that you should share it to some extent.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess. And this is something that I will preach it, but it's I acknowledge it's hard to go through with that. But I think even looking back at like stuff that I've done before, like how shitty I view it now, I'm glad that I did it. Like I'm glad that I learned from those experiences. And also there's a lot to take from looking at the mistakes that you did and then what you did now. Like one of the nicest things that I remember feeling is like people being like, I didn't know you were interested in filmmaking. Like I remember you were making like silly like how like like the how-to videos or whatever. Like when did you decide to do this? Like it's so different. It's like cool. So that always feels good because it's like there's a clear progression, like especially when you have your mistakes out there, people can see that, and maybe not even mistakes, but just not the highest quality.
Best quality.
Yeah.
You can see from start to end, not end necessarily, but the whole process behind it. You can see just in any content that you start creating, like how you do have like incremental improvements. And while like there might be some slow points throughout that process, you pick yourself back up too.
Yeah.
So you had your failed film and now you have your ambition you want to prove everyone wrong and you're going to make this happen. And then it ended up happening where you put together a short film end to end. Yeah.
And I guess like a lot comes with that too. Like even with those who like what you made, I feel like, and this is something even in the personality thing that we found, which I find true too, is like when you feel success, then there is like a lot of pressure that you get to like, what are you going to do next? Or like, what is like the next film that you're going to do? And like, maybe I did have this question from some of our close friends, like, oh, like, when are we going to film the next thing? When are we going to do whatever? And it becomes hard. And like, I remember I made that and I was very like excited to share it. And I, at the time, and even now, I'm so proud of it. Acknowledging whatever faults it has, of course, but I'm so proud of it. But it took me a long time to do something similar. And I think a lot of that comes from the pressure of like and it's not a good pressure because you feel the pressure of like, oh, I did this thing, I have to top it, which I think a lot of people feel. But
well, what happened with your next short film?
Well, the next one is almost another failure, but it's one that I still like pushed it out despite the failure. And to not get into it that much, it wasn't fully completed, but I was able to make something out of what we filmed.
Still share it and still share your thoughts.
Yeah, and still, and it's another like brick to look at as like building the foundation of getting better. And yeah, I don't know.
Chronicles of Alze Films is out there.
Yeah, which is it's like scary. But,
you should probably like retrieve that failed film and use it for something.
I always think about that.
Do you still have it archived?
I have it somewhere. Yeah, okay. I think what I don't have is the audio. The way I filmed it was so weird. But
don't use the audio. Just use the footage.
I don't know if I would upload something that old right now.
Okay, so the question that you dread so much. What's next?
That's the question. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's where we should end. No. I don't know. I will say, I guess like wrapping up, just like talking about this stuff like has made me more like passionate about wanting to do something again. Because I to be honest, like I rarely give enough time to like reflect on these things. So even just sitting down and like thinking about the process that went behind this one, almost thinking like it would be so easy to do that again. Like and just having that thought in the back of my head excites me, because I'm like, the fact that there's like still like a little bit of cockiness that thinks that like, oh, I could definitely do that again.
It would be easy.
Yeah.
That there won't be any struggles.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's still something that I'm struggling with, trying to figure out what I want to do and find the motivation to do it. But I guess to anyone watching, if any lesson that you can gain from any of this is to at least do something. And obviously I'm speaking from someone who's struggling to do anything, but even just reflecting on your own mistakes and seeing where you were and where you're going, it's a lot of motivation. It gives you like that boost, because you see like the mistakes you made help build the improvement that you'll see like later on. And yeah, I don't know.
There you go. True words from John Owsley.
This got really deep.
The lessons you can get out of unemployed YouTuber.
Yeah, at the
Films.
time, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's incredible. There was so much to dig into. There's still so much to dig into, and like I'm sure like we'll continue if you're interested in talking about like the short film. I mean, the failed short film. We could talk about what went into that next short film that you didn't ever complete. Because there's so much more that I'm sure that has gone into the process, and so many other things you have learned just by those ups and downs. But with that, I mean, I think we're ready to wind down.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, I'm getting a phone call right now. The next, the next client for training a dog is like, they're calling for me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's this Rottweiler this time.
I guess
he won't stop eating his grandmother's.
Well,
so I gotta get going.
Yeah, I mean, I have a date to go to.
With who?
Kylie Jenner again.
Oh, how did you set up the second date?
Oh, she simply asked. That's why I've been dressed up this whole time.
Oh,
did you think I dressed up like this for you?
I thought so. Wow. Okay, well, what happened on the first date? You never talked to me about that.
We'll talk about it off the podcast.
It's
a little too personal.
it's a little too much.
Yeah. But I'll say this was a great conversation. I had a great time talking with you about this. People get excited because I feel like this episode will pair greatly with the next episode we're doing, which is Josh talking about his whole experience moving to Wisconsin, which was going on at the exact same time that this whole story that I just told. So it's really, really cool, because we're sharing stuff that we really have never.
We're
really talked
honestly just discovering a lot of this live and like shortly there before.
Yeah.
Because we weren't connected. We still talk to each other from time to time when I was out in Wisconsin. But like
it was like
we're behind the
pen
scenes.
pals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You called us what?
So we were like pen pals.
I never received any mail from you.
Well, I guess I don't know. I must have the wrong address.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm excited for it, and
it's very exciting. This is great. This is like I look forward to this every week.
Me too. Now. Me too. But I really got to get to this dog.
Yeah.
You have to get to your girlfriend. So thank you for listening in. It was a pleasure, and actually, I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks for listening to the We Should Talk More podcast. Josh is gone, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.